Critical illness insurance is an agreement with a life insurance company where they pay you a tax-free lump sum if you are diagnosed with a life-threatening condition or illness. Unlike life insurance, critical illness insurance is not meant to provide long-term financial support to your family after you pass away. Instead, it rather grants financial support while you are recovering from a critical illness. Luckily, our advisors Carly Griffin and Jason Reynolds Goveas are here to explain how a critical illness insurance policy works.
So another common question that you mentioned, and that I definitely see as well, is people wondering what critical illness insurance is exactly. Just because I think it's a relatively, in the world of insurance, a relatively new kind of coverage. So not everyone is immediately familiar with how exactly it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said there, it is definitely a newer kind of concept in just the world in general. A lot of people aren't as familiar with that compared to life insurance, but it is definitely a very important piece of your overall protection plan, an overall part of your financial plan as well. If you were, basically the way it works is if you were diagnosed with one of the covered critical illnesses, so our carriers range from 3 illnesses up to 26 illnesses, more illnesses as well if it is a child's policy, so there's extra illnesses that can be covered there for children. But in the event that you were diagnosed with a covered illness, they basically will pay out a lump sum benefit to you tax-free as a living benefit. So you have to survive a 30-day waiting period, and you'll receive that lump sum benefit. And that there is to do with whatever you need it to do. So whether that's just maintain regular everyday expenses, kind of supplement some income loss while you're getting some treatment, things like that, or in the event that there's additional medical expenses, any kind of expenses that come along, you're going to have some additional financial protection. We typically would recommend at least 1 to 2 times your income to kind of supplement, knowing at least there's a year's income being supplemented there. And then anything above and beyond that will just help maintain any additional expenses, or if any renovations or anything need to happen, say if you were paralyzed and then in a wheelchair, need to make your home wheelchair accessible, things like that, gives you some flexibility there. But basically it just is financial support to help you focus on getting better rather than getting back to work.
What would you say are some of the most common illnesses covered by critical illness insurance?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, some of our carriers offer kind of 3-4 illnesses. The others also offer 24, 25, 26. So those main 4 illnesses, that's referred to as our basic plans, and those are actually the most common illnesses. So that's going to be your life-threatening cancer, heart attack, stroke, and coronary artery bypass surgery. The one that offers 3 just doesn't have that coronary artery bypass surgery. So those are your main 4 illnesses that are most commonly claimed upon. And then others with the other enhanced coverage are things such as like loss of limbs, blindness, deafness, coma, severe burns, paralysis, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, things like that. So wanting to make sure that you have kind of those things covered, but the main ones there are those core 4.
And so the amount that you're covered for, is that usually the same as life insurance?
No, not usually not. It's critical illness is usually about 10 times as expensive as life insurance. Also, life insurance is usually for bigger ticket items, right? You don't want to, if you get a heart attack, you don't need to pay off your mortgage. What you need is time off to recuperate, right? So you just need that amount. Basically, the recommended amount is between 1 and 2 years income, right? The higher your income, the higher the amount of coverage I would recommend. But the average that we see is between 50 and 100,000, right? So almost everybody would like to have at least 50,000 of a critical illness coverage. It gives you that buffer where, because it's a tax-free payout, right? If something happens to you, you get that money, you take time off from work. I usually say that the first heart attack doesn't kill people, right? It's the second, third one that does. And the reason why people have this recurrence is because you're going back to the same stressor, the same environment without having recovered, right? And the reason you don't have the time or the bandwidth to recover is because you have bills to pay, right? And nobody can fault anyone for that. You have to go back to work because you have to earn an income, because you have to support your family. And if you have this insurance, it allows you to just sit back, take some more time to yourself, heal properly, and then go back and face whatever you have to. Right?
And then I see on many policies you can add critical illness insurance as a rider. Is that like an adequate way to get this type of coverage?
If it was giving you the same kind of options as a full-fledged coverage, then yes, but many times it doesn't. Most riders would be only 3 or 4 conditions. You cannot always add the 26 conditions or 25 conditions coverage as a rider. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
You can, in many cases, do that also. Some companies allow you to do that. But if your critical illness is not your base policy, you may not be able to add to the most common riders with critical illness, right? So we have questions almost every day from clients saying, hey, can I get my money back if I don't claim it, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of my term, can I get my money back? With life insurance, you don't have that option, but with critical illness, you do, right? So there are three big ways in which they can get their money back, and all of them are basically riders called return of premium riders. So these return of premium could be at death, it could be at cancellation or maturity, and they come at an additional cost, and they can be added on to a critical illness policy. If you take a full policy, you can add this on. If you take a rider, in many cases you can't add that on. So that becomes a limitation there. So also, let's say your need for life insurance ends.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot continue the rider without the base policy.
Gotcha.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I have a mortgage. I have a mortgage for 25 years and I've taken a critical illness coverage on top of that as a rider. Once my mortgage is done, if I pay it off in 20 years, I still have to keep my policy active for another 5 just so that I can continue that critical illness coverage, or that goes as well. If I have a separate policy, I can stop my life insurance at any point and continue with my critical illness separately. It gives me that much more control over what I'm covered for.
Cool. And are there any like common misconceptions that you find when people are asking about it, or had assumptions about critical illness insurance that just aren't quite accurate?
Yeah, a lot of people think it's a replacement for disability insurance. That's one of the big ones for sure. Whereas really they work together, and they can work together a lot of the time, because disability insurance is your loss of income. So a little bit separate, pays out a monthly benefit to you if you've lost your income due to a disability or an illness. So in certain circumstances, those two coverages can actually pay out at the same time. So then your critical illness coverage is no longer required to replace your income, because that's where disability is coming in. But there's also certain circumstances where the disability insurance may not need to pay out, because you've been able to work and you've been able to still go to work and maintain that income in the home while still going through treatments, recovery, things like that. So that's probably one of the biggest, is just thinking that it's more of a replacement or a substitute, where really it's a supplement to both of those. So if you were to ask me which one's most important, I would say both.